Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to go through all the Blu-rays and DVDs that I picked up in the month of March. So I've got quite a few to get through, so we'll get straight into it. First up from Scream Factory is The Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas. This is a Hammer film from the 50s, so quite an early Hammer film. One that I've wanted to see for a long time, so finally happy to pick this one up. And this one sees Peter Cushing heading up an expedition looking for the abominable snowman / Yeti creature, I believe. So it sounds right up my street. I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. Haven't had the chance to do so yet, but like I say, very happy to finally add this one to the collection. Okay, next up is Backwoods. This is a kind of just a pretty generic hillbilly slasher type movie. This bunch of teenagers, they have this party at this house, and then just down from the house in the woods is this shack where this mutated hillbilly lives, and he starts sort of picking them off one by one. Like I say, it's pretty generic stuff, but I was entertained by it. It's pretty low budget, but the gore's rather good. And I think it's only just over an hour long, and to be honest, that was enough. So pretty standard stuff, but I had fun with this one. Okay, next up from Shudder is The Beach House. Now, I'd not heard very good reviews about this one, but I did want to check it out for myself. I have to say though, I was disappointed in this one too. I thought this was really didn't do it for me. It was very dull, very kind of boring film, a bit of a slog to get through, to be honest. I didn't like the characters, I didn't care for them at all. Not a lot really happened, and it was very ambiguous, but more in kind of an annoying way. I had more questions than answers by the time the film had finished, and just didn't enjoy this one at all. One good thing about this film that I will give it credit for is it does have some really good practical gooey effects which looked amazing, but it kind of just resulted in this being a massive missed opportunity in my opinion, because if they'd have sort of done more to the storyline and give it a bit more oomph, I think this could have been good, but no, this really fell flat in my opinion. Didn't like that one. Okay, next up is Beneath Still Waters. This is just kind of a low budget kind of movie from the early 2000s. This town, they are attacked by sort of supernatural creatures in the water. It's a bit all over the place. The plot is a real mess, and at times it's kind of pretty mean-spirited and gory, and then at times I'm not sure if it's trying to be funny or not. It's really all over the place. I am a fan of water-themed horror films, and I have quite the threshold for bad movies, so I did get some entertainment out of this one, but I doubt this one will be for many people. I don't think many people will go for this one. But that's what it was, alright. Okay, next up is Bloodbath, Blood Bags. This one was another one I didn't care for too much. These teenagers, they start exploring this dilapidated house, and there's this sort of monster inside it, but it's very slow. It kind of picks up in the last 20 minutes and does actually get pretty good, but by that time it's kind of like, what the point? So yeah, this one, not a great one here either, unfortunately. Okay, next up is Blood, the Last Vampire. This one I thought was good. I enjoyed this. I'm not the biggest fan of anime, but I do want to try and pick up a few more horror themed animes, and this one, upon research, was like a real fan favourite, one of the more popular and famous ones. So I thought I'd give this one a go, and yeah, I did like this. As far as animes go, I thought this one was a good one. Okay, next up from Scream Factory is Bones. So with Snoop Dogg here as this kind of neighbourhood gang lord, it's strange, he's a gang lord, but it turns out he has some real strong morals. So yeah, He gets killed off by some even more unscrupulous gang lords, and then his body is ditched in this house which these teenagers want to renovate and turn into a nightclub. And then Snoop Dogg's character, he gets resurrected as this demon, and then kind of starts to take revenge on everybody around him. It's a strange mix of kind of like, I don't know, kind of like Boys in the Hood drama, and then silly supernatural stuff going on, with a bit of The Crow thrown in as well. So interesting mix of genres there. I didn't think the movie was great, but I did have fun with it. I thought it was okay. Credit to Snoop Dogg though, he was really good in this film. He was probably the best thing about this film, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing on the film itself, but yeah, I was surprised with his performance. He was very good. So yeah, Bones, it was okay. Nice to finally check it out, at least anyway. Okay, next up from Scream Factory, we have Brides of Dracula, a fantastic Hammer movie. This one sees Peter Cushing battling this family of vampires in the usual kind of Carpathian forest setting. It's a really, really wonderful film. Excellent Hammer movie. It was a first time watch for me, so nice to finally check this movie out. And this vampire woman here, I'd seen her a lot as a kid, like in books and things like that. Seen a lot of pictures of her, so it was nice to actually see the film that she's in. So yeah, highly recommend Brides of Dracula as an excellent Hammer movie. Okay, next up from Network, we have Chiller. So this was a British TV show. I believe it aired in 1995. I don't personally remember it being on at the time, but I would have been very young. And this is about 5 or 6 supernatural ghost stories that were told on TV. It's pretty good. I've watched 2 or 3 of the episodes, and to be fair, they're pretty creepy. If I'd have watched this as a kid, it would have scared the crap out of me. So I'm glad I kind of avoided this when I was young. I would never have got to sleep. But yeah, pretty good Chiller. I'm enjoying watching these. So that's that one. Okay, next up from Warner Brothers is Critters Attack. Finally picked this movie up. I've not heard very good things about this one, but I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great throwback to 80s and a great throwback to the Critters movies. Definitely better than Part 4. Probably better than Part 3 as well. Yeah, I just had a lot of fun with this one. It was really, really good. The critters look fantastic. Lots of practical effects going on. So yeah, I can't fault this one. Had a lot of fun watching it. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome is Cthulhu Mansion. This is another one of their, I think, Spanish-Mexican productions. Not had a chance to watch this one yet. I'm looking forward to doing so. And so far, these particular movies have not been disappointing. They've been fantastic. So I'm hoping Cthulhu Mansion carries on that trend. It sounds really good from the back, and I've heard a few decent reviews, so fingers crossed that one will be good. Okay, next up we have some extreme horror. German extreme film, Dard Divorce. Thank you to Paul Cook for sending me this again, and a couple of others this month. So yeah, this movie, I enjoyed this. This is kind of like a torture type movie. This woman, she gets involved, I think it's her husband is involved in these gangsters, and they come after her for information, and the way they try and get it is a variety of different torture scenes and things like that. So it goes into a bit of like Hostel territory. It was pretty good. It didn't disappoint on the gore and the torture. There's quite a few scenes in it that made me wince. The only thing about this which really kind of ruined the film was at the end of the movie, one of the characters, he goes into this big speech about a variety of things, and it kind of explains why everything's happening. It kind of pieces everything together. But the weirdest thing is, you can't hear what he's saying. They crank up the music and drown out his talking. So all you can see is him moving his mouth while this overly loud music plays. And it kind of ruined the movie, to be honest. It was I guess, a mistake by the sound guy or editing or something. It was really strange. But if you're looking for torture and gore and lots of unpleasantness like that, this movie won't disappoint in that respect. Pretty cool stuff, apart from the ending. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have Dark Tower. So, I've seen a number of reviews about this one, a lot of them saying it was pretty slow and it gets kind of good in the last 10 or 15 minutes, and I pretty much echo that myself. It wasn't a bad film, there's just not that much happens throughout, and then the last sort of, as I say, 10, 15, 20 minutes, it does really pick up and gets quite full on with what's going on. It's about like a haunted skyscraper in Barcelona, I believe, and Jenny Agutter, she plays one of the employees here, and Michael Moriarty, who's a very underrated actor. He has a lot of charm without really doing much. He's, I think, investigating what's going on. But yeah, pretty slow, but not terrible. It kind of reminded me of The Lift. Had a very similar feel to that. So if you like The Lift, maybe you want to check out Dark Tower. Okay, next up from Retro Media, we have Dark Universe. Very cheesy, very low budget monster movie. The monster in this looks pretty cool. It's this big slimy alien thing. Gets a decent amount of screen time. Other than that, though, there's not really anything else to recommend in this movie. It's pretty dull. The characters are terrible. The acting's terrible. I stayed for the monster. Put it that way. So that's that one. Okay, next up is Dead Clowns. What's this one about? This is these clowns. I think they come from the sea and they attack this town. I think the ship sank years ago and like nobody helped them or something. So now they're coming back for revenge. It's okay. It's very, very low budget. It's almost shot on video level, low budget kind of filmmaking. It might even be shot on video. It's not bad if you're okay with that really low budgetness in movies. And the clowns look pretty cool, but you do have to kind of get through that really ropey looking low budget filmmaking, but not too bad. Okay, next up from Code Red is The Devil's Wedding Night. This is a film I've wanted to see for years, so thank you Code Red for releasing this one. And this one didn't disappoint. This was actually much better than what I was expecting. I thought this was a really good example of kind of Euro style horror filmmaking. So like the type of films that take place in like the Gothic castles and things like that. Kind of like Paul Naschy films. If you're into Paul Naschy films, maybe check this one out. This one, as I say, really didn't disappoint. I really like the Gothic atmosphere of it and the look of the castle and things like that. And the main guy, I think is Mark Damon, he plays two people. He plays two brothers, two twin brothers that stumble upon this castle and this weird ceremony that this vampire woman's doing. He did a great job as both the brother and the brother that turns into a vampire. So really good performance by him. So yeah, great to finally see this movie, and it's really nice when you're waiting so long to see a film and it's good. So next up from Vinegar Syndrome, I picked up the Forgotten Charlie Volume 3 box set. So this comes with the Autopsy, Murder Mansion and Crazy Desires of a Murderer. Not had a chance to watch any of these yet, but if the last two box sets are anything to go by, hopefully these will be pretty good. So I'll just show you these. So you've got Crazy Desires of a Murderer. Got Autopsy, really cool cover art there. I think that's a reversible cover art for that film, but I really like that. And then Murder Mansion. Great looking cover art on that as well, very sort of VHS style cover art. So, like I say, looking forward to checking these ones out. And I think in terms of forgotten movies, these definitely meet that criteria. I don't think any of these three films have ever officially been released until Vinegar Syndrome have picked them up now. So very interesting to see what they're like. But yeah, certainly a cool box set and another very nice presentation from Vinegar Syndrome as well. Okay, next up we have The Gathering. This was a pretty interesting film. So this is centred around this archaeological dig in England which unearths some kind of religious thing which kind of spells the oncoming of this like end of the world apocalypse thing, and Christina Ricci and a couple of people from the church are trying to investigate it. So this was just a blind buy for me. I'd never heard of this film, and it was pretty good. The religious aspect and the kind of the end of the world thing was much more interesting than Christina Ricci's plight, which was focused on a bit too much. But it was a nice movie to discover because I'd never heard of it before. So yeah, pretty good, pretty intriguing stuff. Okay, next up from Scream Factory is Grave of the Vampire. So a vampire movie from the 70s. Michael Pataki, he plays this vampire who, what happens now? This woman has his baby and she dies, and then years later the son is looking for his vampire father, and I think he's set out to kill him. I think I watched this right at the beginning of the month. It was an okay film. It wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it, but it was nothing special. Michael Pataki is a great actor, but not a great vampire in my opinion. I've seen better, but it was an enjoyable film. I'm glad I finally picked that one up. Okay, next up is Hammerhead. A very silly film starring Jeffrey Combs. He's on this island messing with human and shark DNA to create these creatures, and he invites a bunch of scientists and people to check out his work, but they're all people that have like wronged him and screwed him over professionally in the past. So he uses this hammerhead shark creature to kill them off. It's not great. It was just silly entertainment really, but not one I could really recommend all that much. Okay, next up is Hoax, one that I'm really looking forward to watching. This is a Bigfoot film. A bunch of people set out to try and prove or disprove the legend. I don't know too much about it. I just saw it and saw it was a Bigfoot film. It's got a couple of interesting people in it. Adrian Barbeau, Brian Thompson's in it. Not seen him for a while, so yeah, I'm hoping this one will be good, because I do love my Bigfoot movies. Okay, next up from Shudder is Host. Seen a lot of people picking this one up. This was a film that was filmed last year during lockdown, and it takes place entirely over people's computer screens while they use Zoom, the electronic communication method. And it's a group of women. They hold a seance that goes wrong, and it invites in a malicious demon force, and a lot of scary things start to happen. And this was a scary film. I don't mind saying it. It got to me. I was very uncomfortable watching it. It was very effective. I don't know if it's because I use this technology myself in work, so it was eerily familiar. And because you're kind of watching it on everybody's computer screen, you almost feel part of the seance itself, and you feel as if you're part of this thing that shouldn't be happening. Yeah, very uncomfortable film. Hard to kind of pinpoint, which makes it even scarier, but definitely effective, and a great idea to utilise the lockdown situation to make this movie. So credit to the filmmakers for that. Okay, next up from Vinegar Syndrome was House of Usher. Nice release from Vinegar Syndrome, but not a great movie. Pretty dull, if I'm being honest. Not even Oliver Reed and Donald Pleasance could save this one. I didn't find it all that interesting, unfortunately. So, yeah. Okay, next up from Scream Factory is How to Make a Monster, a hugely enjoyable 1950s monster movie. I had so much fun watching this. This is one of the best films I picked up this month, I think. So this is this special effects makeup man. He's fired by the studio because the executives don't want to make horror films anymore. They think monster movies are outdated, so they fire him, and he comes up with this idea to use the monsters in his movies to kill off the studio executives that shut him down. So principally he uses the monster from I Was a Teenage Werewolf and I Was a Teenage Frankenstein to start killing them off. It's absolutely fantastic, and what I love about How to Make a Monster is it kind of does the Scream thing where it looks in on itself and it's self-referential, and to see a 1950s movie do that was really, really interesting. So if you're into 50s horror movies and 50s monster movies, definitely check out How to Make a Monster. It's one of the best examples of the time and genre, in my opinion. Okay, next up is Hunter's Blood. Don't go looking for this DVD because I made this myself. Thank you to Paul Cook. He sent me the movie on disc, so I put it in this case. And this was a great film. I don't know why this has not had an official release yet. Very kind of Deliverance-like. A bunch of city boys go hunting in the wilderness. They fall foul of these hillbilly types who then proceed to hunt them down in the woods. Pretty good stuff. Pretty scary, quite tense in places. And got some good people in it as well. I think Clu Gallagher was in it. Charles Cyphers pops up in it. He was good. And a guy, what was his name? Somebody Travolta, who he must be John Travolta's brother, because he was very similar to him. But yeah, I really wish a company would release this properly. I'd love to see Hunter's Blood get an official release because I really enjoyed it. Okay, next up from Scream Factory is Kiss of the Vampire. Another excellent Hammer movie. Really, really good film. No Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee, but it has all the other kind of Hammer tropes. Sort of big dark castles, gothic atmosphere. Really nice, lush colours. And stars Edward D'Souza, who was fantastic in it. I wish he would have done more Hammer films because he was fantastic. It's about him and his wife. They break down and they are offered hospitality by this kind of aristocratic family, but they're a family of vampires, which leads to all kind of complications. But yeah, really, really enjoyed Kiss of the Vampire, and a wonderful release from Scream Factory as well. So another really good Hammer movie this month that I can recommend. Okay, next up is Cruel. This is about this teenage girl. She's babysitting, and the kid that she's babysitting disappears, and she's convinced it's this creepy guy, this creepy ice cream truck driver that she's seen around the neighbourhood, and she's trying to convince the adults and the police that it's this weird guy, and her boyfriend kind of like take it upon themselves and investigate him and that kind of thing. This has some terrible reviews, but I thought it was pretty good. It was surprisingly good, actually, after reading some of the bad things about it. I thought it had a pretty intriguing storyline, kept you guessing, good mix of kind of horror, thriller and drama, that kind of thing. Even thought the teenage girl was pretty good as well. She wasn't annoying, she was quite convincing. She put in a good performance, so credit to her. Yeah, I had no real problem with this movie. I thought it was okay. Okay, next up from Scream Factory is The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, a Hammer horror film that I've wanted to see for years. So finally picked it up, and this did not disappoint at all. This was so much fun to watch. It is a fantastic mix of Hammer horror and kung fu with a bit of western thrown in as well. So very fun, albeit strange mix of filmmaking, but for me it completely worked. I thought it was great. Peter Cushing was wonderful in this film, and I really liked his on-screen partnership with the young Japanese guy. I thought they worked really well together, and it was great to see Peter Cushing probably out of his comfort zone a little bit, but it was just fantastic. The vampires and the zombie creatures looked great. The kung fu was fun to watch. Yeah, I had so much fun watching this. I'm glad that I finally picked it up. So yeah, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, awesome. Okay, next up is Monster Hunter. I've not had a chance to watch this yet. I've not heard great things about it. Apparently it's based on a video game, but I'm not a gamer, so I wasn't aware of that. But it's the same team behind Resident Evil. It's directed by Paul Anderson, stars Mila Jovovich. I personally really like the Resident Evil films, so I thought I'd give this one a chance and just see what it's like. Hopefully it will be entertaining. We'll see. Right, next up from Vinegar Syndrome is Nightmare Sisters. A very silly but entertaining 80s horror film. Linnea Quigley and a couple of other actresses are these like geeky sorority girls that evoke this demon guy, and he turns them into these succubi monsters. It's very, very silly, but I had a lot of fun watching it. It was a good example of fun, silly 80s horror. Okay, next up from Code Red is Panic, another film I've been watching for a long time. This one was a good movie, monster movie set in Britain. And how does it happen now? I think there's a lab experiment or something which goes wrong, and it creates this guy. He starts to like melt and turn into this monster, and he goes on the run killing people. And David Warbeck and Janet Agron have to try and stop him. It's pretty cheesy stuff, but I had a good time with this one. It was again nice to finally check this one out and to enjoy it as well. So glad to finally own a copy of Panic. You hardly hear about that movie ever, so nice to see it get a Blu-ray release. Okay, next up from Severin is Plaguetown. This one kind of took me by surprise. I'd never heard of it before, and it was a really good film. A lot of the movies that I get from Severin at the moment seem to be quite cheesy and trashy. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But Plaguetown was a serious horror film, very much like folky horror, kind of Wicker Man type, set in Ireland. These American tourists go over to this quiet village, but you start to realise very early on that something's not quite right, and they start to interact with the locals who are really creepy and weird, and it just gets weirder and weirder and creepier. But very good film. This was very much a hidden gem for me. I thought it was really good. So credit to Severin. They kind of just this just came out of nowhere. Never heard of it before. Thought it was going to be pretty silly and cheesy, but actually it was a pretty good, pretty accomplished folky horror film. So I could recommend that one. Next up from Severin is Primitives. Looking forward to finally checking this one out. This is a cannibal film. I think this one is from Indonesia. So I've been wanting to see it for a while anyway. I'm interested to see if they do anything different from like the Italian cannibal movies that we have. But yeah, will be a curious one, I'm sure. So yeah, looking forward to checking that one out. Okay, what's next? So next is Red Water. So this is about it's a shark movie. I think it's a bull shark gets in this lake system, and Lou Diamond Phillips has to kind of deal with it. Pretty good stuff. I think this DVD is very rare now, and I found this online for like £2, so I swooped on it quick and grabbed it, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I like my shark films. If you like your shark films, I think you'll enjoy that one. Pretty cool looking shark as well. It's mainly practical effects, which is good. Okay, next up, oh god, so from Unearth Films we have Regurgitated Sacrifice, the most disgusting movie I've ever seen. It is basically just extreme gore and people vomiting on each other. It I was going to say, it was a tough watch. I nearly was sick myself, to be honest. Both when I was watching it and the next morning eating my breakfast when I thought about it again. It was really tough. Saying that, there were some good things about it. The gore looked absolutely fantastic, and the acting was pretty good in this as well for what it was. But yeah, tough film, and the extreme violence and the vomiting on people is presented in quite a sexual way as well. Sorry, Mum and Dad, but yeah, impossible to recommend, but very rare now as well. So I'm glad to have this in the collection. So, yes, let's move on. So next up from Scream Factory is Relic. This was an interesting film, another one that I had more questions than answers after finishing watching it. It's pretty good. It's hard to go into this one, but this mum and daughter, they've gone to care for the mum's mum, the young girl's grandma. She's got dementia and Alzheimer's and that kind of thing, but there's spooky things going on at the same time. I have my own theories about this. I think it's a representation for things such as getting old and things like that, but I'm not sure. I enjoyed it. It lagged a bit in the middle, but it was pretty good and it was pretty creepy. So, yeah, not too bad. Okay, next up from AGFA, we have Scary Tales. So this is shot on video. Now, I do tend to struggle with shot on video movies. Sometimes they're so low budget, I find them unwatchable. This one, though, I enjoyed it. This was one of the best shot on video films I think I've probably ever seen. It was watchable, it was a good effort, it had good gore, and it was pretty creative as well for a shot on video film. Especially the third segment, because it's an anthology, the third segment where a guy's video game comes to life and he's plunged into the video game. That was really cool. So if you are a fan of shot on video horror and you like really low budget stuff, I can recommend Scary Tales. Yeah, Scary Tales. Yeah, it was pretty good. Okay, next up from Scorpion is Silent Scream. This is a blind buy for me. I've never seen this before. I think it's a slasher, but I've not got a chance to check it out yet. But I'm hoping it'll be a good one. Okay, next up from Warner Brothers, we have Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And I've never seen this before. I remember it not getting good reviews when it came out back in the day. I think it had a really troubled production. They removed like all the violence and gore when it came out. The studio hated everything that they did. So yeah, it had a very troubled kind of making. It's not a good film. I don't think any of the sequels do the original Texas Chainsaw any favours, and this one was no exception. But I did enjoy it, and to say they removed all the kind of the gore and the violence, it sort of left it with like a TV movie kind of feel, which for some reason, I enjoyed that. I thought it was a nice way to show the film, really. I don't know. It's not great, but like I say, I did have fun watching it. And then sticking with this inconsistent franchise, we have Texas Chainsaw. I'm just trying to fill the gaps in my Texas Chainsaw Massacre collection. This one was okay, very standard stuff. Pretty much everything that I would expect from a modern Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. It was okay and very standard. They did do one thing which I thought was strange, where they presented Leatherface as kind of a goodie towards the end of the film, which was such a bizarre thing to do. But yeah, it was alright. Next up from Unearthed Films, we have Torched. This is I think it's a rape revenge film. This woman is raped by these guys and she takes revenge, tortures them, things like that. I've not had a chance to watch this yet. I've heard it's pretty strong stuff, so hopefully that will deliver on the extreme front. And more extreme horror from Unearthed Films. We have The Untold Story, the story of a serial killer in Hong Kong. This was alright. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, and I didn't think it was all that extreme, to be honest. There's a few quite strong scenes. I mean, the bit where he kills the guy's family and all his kids was brutal, but yeah, strange film. And it was on one hand extremely violent, and then they just threw in like scenes of comedy, which were really jarring and not all that funny, to be honest either. The police team that are trying to track down this serial killer are just like a bunch of jokers, and I didn't care for that at all. So yeah, not a film that I particularly enjoyed all that much, unfortunately, but it's one that I've heard a lot about over the years. It's got a lot of notoriety, so good to finally check that one out. Alright, next up is You Should Have Left. Yeah, I didn't like this one either. This was terrible, actually. Really didn't enjoy this film. Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried, they go to this house in Wales, and it's kind of like haunted, and it's got passages that lead to other passages, and it's one of them films where everything's in a continuous loop, and they go to escape and come back at the beginning, and I hate those kind of films. They mess with my head, and I don't like them. I didn't like the characters. It was very gloomy and depressing. Yeah, not one I would recommend at all, unfortunately. Probably the worst film I've seen Kevin Bacon do, which is a real shame. Okay, next up, nearly there, guys. From Arrow Video, we have The Zero Boys, which was one that I wanted to check out. It was a very intriguing plot. From what I read, it was like a survival horror slasher with a bit of action, with kind of nods towards Saw and Hostel. So I was interested to see how they would come up with that kind of mash of genres. And they do it really well. It's a really good film about these teenagers. They go to the woods, and they're hunted by like these guys in the woods, and they set up cameras and traps and things. So it's all kind of prearranged, hence like the Hostel Saw kind of thing. And then similar to like Hunter's Blood, they're sort of going through the wilderness trying to fight back and fight off these hillbilly woodsman people. Really good film. I was pleasantly surprised by this one. Nice release by Arrow as well. So, yeah, cool movie. And then the last film this month from Scream Factory is Zombie Fight Club. Not seen this yet, and I don't know much about it. I think it's a foreign film, dubbed. So we'll have to see. It looks fun from the cover, so hopefully this one will be a good movie as well. So that's everything that I got, guys. Thank you for watching that long video. As always, please let me know what you think of the movies that I picked up this month. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.